Beaming to your device directly from an undisclosed graveyard somewhere in Southern California, it's the Hollywood Horror Nerds, your number one source for news, speculation, and discussion, exclusively for Universal Studio Hollywood's Halloween Horror Nights. And now to your hosts, Undead Ed and the Phantom of the Podcast, Alvaro. Alright, welcome to our very first episode of the Hollywood Horror Nerds, not the Halloween Horror Nerds, as I want to say every time I say that. I am, as you heard, one of your hosts, Undead Ed, and my co-host here is the Phantom of the Podcast, Alvaro. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you for that marvelous introduction, Undead Ed. Hi, everyone. This is an exclusive just for Universal Studios Hollywood. Just want to make that extra clear.
This is also the exclusive home of the Phantom of the Podcast. You won't hear him anywhere else on the air.
Yes, Undead Ed made me write an exclusive contract.
There's an extensive non-compete clause in that contract.
Unfortunately, he says it's for a lifetime. But
he will never record again. This is it. This is the first and last episode. And he will be replaced with a new monster from my menagerie for the next episode. So enjoy him while you have him.
Please help me. The call is coming from within the house.
So the Phantom of the Podcast here is not the only exclusive thing about this podcast. We are, as he mentioned, exclusively here for Universal Studios Hollywood. We know there are a number of other fantastic podcasts out there already dealing with Halloween Horror Nights. But our issue is we're California guys. We're West Coast. We don't go to Orlando for this event. That would be a big trip. It's much cheaper to stay closer to home. And, we love the Hollywood part. That's where our memories are. That's where we see our friends. And that's where we do Halloween Horror Nights every year. And Orlando, I hear it's a great event. I'm sure all the people in Florida are wonderful. We just don't care. It's not part of our lives. And we wanted something that is just about Hollywood.
There's great people in both places. I'm sure I've been told in Orlando that it's awesome, it's great, it's amazing. But it's also very, very expensive.
Very expensive to travel from Los Angeles to Orlando for a one-night event when we have it so close to home. And we think it is fantastic close to home. We really love the Halloween event that we have here.
Yes, there's nothing like home, as they always say.
Yes, we have the back lot, and we have... I don't know. I've never been to the Orlando one. I read that we have better scare actors. It may or may not be true. Sorry to all you Orlando folks out there.
Yes. At least you can't beat our weather.
Yes.
Hey.
But this will be hopefully the last time you hear about Orlando. The only time we'll talk about that event is if something happens there that's going to affect us back home here. So if you're only here for Orlando, sorry. But stick around. Maybe you'll like what you hear, and maybe you'll make the trek out west this year.
Yes. Come to us, because we do not want to go there.
We cannot afford to go there.
But soon, maybe, if all things go well, Patreon.
Oh,
hey.
Wow, we're really jumping on that train very early. Someone was told there would only be Patreon if we had a few hundred concurrent listeners, but I guess the cat's out of the bag now.
Ed, if we won't get them now, how will we get them to stick around?
All right, you heard it here first, folks. We're heavy into monetization for this podcast. You're going to have to start swiping your credit card into your Spotify or Apple podcast just to keep listening. That's where we're going.
We also take Venmo.
All right, so before you open up your wallets and you start giving us all your savings just to listen to us ramble on about a dorky little Halloween event, why don't we get to know each other a little better? So we met, when did we meet? We went in college around 2014, I think?
2014, that's 2014. Right. We met in our college fraternity, which let's not say.
We don't want to shame our fraternity too badly. It's been through enough.
Yes, unfortunately.
And we started going to horror nights in 2016. Was our first year. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, it was something I had wanted to do for a long time. I'm from Northern California, and I would see it on the ads, and it sounded so cool. I was always into Halloween. I remember doing 2 months of Halloween in September. Before that became the whole world started doing that when I was in middle school and high school. And the idea of a whole night that's just Halloween, all your favorite scary movies, so much fun, original costumes, you get to walk through all those sets. It sounded so awesome. And once I was in LA for college, I was like, this is something I need to do. Before I moved away, I ended up sticking around. But we went that first year, and I fell in love right away. Alvaro, what about you?
For me, it was a little different. I'm from Southern California, so it's right around the corner. Unfortunately, not a lot of people in my family or friends really liked horror as much as I did. They were such scaredy cats, unfortunately. Don't mean to drag them too much, but since I was the only one that went, hey, I want to go get scared, they said, hey, we can scare you for free. And I said, it's not the same. They were saying, we got scared at home.
Yeah. It's amateur level scare.
Yes, it's amateur
level. Here
at
the Hollywood Horror Nerds, we only accept professional fear.
Professional fear at its best. But yeah, and then it wasn't until I met Undead Ed that we finally found a connection and we said, hey, let's just go. Let's just do it. And we've gone almost every year. The only year we didn't go was, you guessed it, 2020 for reasons.
That's not quite true. We did miss one year. We went to a different competing Halloween event in Los Angeles, though shall not be named at this time.
Yes,
shall be undisclosed because it's not relevant to this podcast.
It's
not relevant to today's episode.
Well, then let me make this clear. Then we only missed 2 times since 2016. One for we didn't sign a non-compete clause with Halloween Horror Nights. And then the other one...
will sign. If anyone from Universal is listening, if you are willing to give us that contract, we will sign.
Yes, we will. And then the other year was because the whole world went on pause.
Yes.
Including us.
Unfortunately, that took Horror Nights. We were right back the next year.
Yes.
We even wore the mask in the park.
We did it. We did the whole shebang. We never took them off.
And that was a good year.
We followed all the rules, Universal.
Don't kick us out.
Yes.
Free advertising for you. Let us stay.
Yes.
So that's us. That's a little bit of our history with Horror Nights. And over the course of this podcast, I imagine you'll hear more and more about it. But today we're going to talk a little more about some recent history. So today's episode, I'm sure all of you, if you're listening to a Halloween Horror Nights podcast at the kind of the dawn of the Christmas season, I'm sure you, like me, are suffering from a little bit of Halloween withdrawal and you miss it. So we're going to cure some of those post-Horror Night blues for you today. And we're going to go back through the last year. We're going to go through every maze that the event had. We're going to talk about what we liked, what we didn't, give you a little review of each one. And at the end, I think we'll talk about kind of our overall impressions of the event as a whole.
Yeah, let's get it started.
Yeah. So, typically we'll talk about speculation as well, what we think is going to come the next year. But we think for this first episode, there's not much out there in Rumorland just yet. I'm sure that will heat up sooner rather than later. These mazes usually you get clues dropping pretty early. But for now, we're just going to look back. We're going to talk about what we liked, what we didn't. And as my host, the Phantom of the podcast, said, let's get this going. Do you have the order? We have a preordained order for this.
Yes, the first one we're going to be going through is Evil Dead Rise.
All right, yeah. So if we're going to go through the orders, if you entered the park and you went to the nearest maze and then to the next nearest and just went like that all the way down the line. And unfortunately for everyone, that first one is going to be Evil Dead Rise. And I say unfortunately because for me at least, this was the bottom of the barrel this year.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I didn't want to make you have any ideas that it was not that great, but I did not like it either.
Yeah, I mean, even the worst maze, I still kind of enjoy going through it. I can still get a kick out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this one had not much going for it. I would say the number one thing, and we'll talk a little about the behind the scenes here, is it was almost a 1-for-1 copy of last year's Universal Horror Hotel, which was one of my favorite mazes from that event. But the Evil Dead Rise variant, I thought, did not compete. What did you think?
It competed in terms of what you could see, in terms of visuals, but in terms of the maze overall, it was nothing. It was a straight up rip-off. It was a copy and paste.
Did you notice as you were going through it that it was a lot of the same sequences?
I did. The one good thing, though, I guess it got it going for itself, is that you just kept hearing the creepy mother's voice throughout the entire experience, which if you watch the movie, she's very creepy. So
now let me explain why it is that it was so similar. So Evil Dead Rise released earlier this year, I believe. But originally it was scheduled to be released on HBO Max or HBO Go, I think at the time. I don't remember what it was back then. But whatever the streaming service was, it was scheduled to be released not this year, but last year. And I mean, I don't have visual. I've never confirmed this myself, but the hot rumor out there that I believe is that it was supposed to come to Horror Nights for last year's event in this same space. And because Warner Brothers decided to pull the movie and release it in theaters this year instead of at its original release date, they also pulled it from the Horror Nights event. And the team behind the scenes had to scramble to come up with something to replace it in that space. And it was a little bit too late to really come up with a whole new experience, but they could retheme it a little bit, and that's how we got the Universal Horror Hotel. Which, personally, for me, that, again, was one of my favorites last year. I thought they knocked that out of the park. And maybe if it had been a fresh experience for Evil Dead Rise, I would have liked it all the same. But unfortunately, I knew where every scare was going to be. I knew what all those big sequences were going to be. And not much stood out. So, Alvaro, you actually saw this movie. I haven't seen this one.
You haven't seen this movie?
I refuse to watch an Evil Dead movie that does not have Bruce Campbell. I go to those movies specifically to see Bruce Campbell and his chainsaw and his boomstick. And if they don't have that, I'm just not that into it.
You're a Bruce Campbell stan?
I stan Bruce Campbell.
Well, I enjoyed this movie. It was a little different from what I was used to. The aspect of the mother was a great touch. Because nothing's stronger than a mother's love, of course. And nothing goes beyond the grave like mother's love.
So let me ask you this, because you've actually seen the movie. Did it do a good job translating the property into a walkthrough experience?
I will say the translation from movie to walkthrough was very good. I was able, if you've seen the movie, then you know what I'm talking about. Ed, this is going to be spoilers ahead if you have not seen this movie.
We'll just throw out we're going to spoil every property that the event touches as we talk about these mazes. So
yes.
Prepare your ears.
If you haven't seen this movie, too bad.
Don't turn it off. Keep watching. We're better than the movie.
Yes, much better. You can listen to us while you're driving. You can't listen to the movie while you drive.
You can, but we don't recommend it.
Highly unrecommend.
Yeah.
No, but for the movie, the one thing that I very much loved was the creepiness of the mother once she transforms into the evil undead monster that she becomes. The scare actors throughout the film, throughout the walkthrough, do a really good job of trying to scare you by looking like her. The audio visuals that you see of hearing her constant voice, almost like a lullaby, but in such an off-tune way that it sounds so strange, so weird. That was great because the movie, she sounds just like it. Of course, it's a recording of the movie, so of course you're going to feel it. But the visuals and the auditory sound effects made it a great walkthrough experience. When you go in through the rooms and you see in the kid's room where he, in my professional opinion as a podcaster, he was an idiot because he never listened to his sister who told him, hey, you know that weird stuff you found at the basement of our building? Don't touch it. And what does he do? He touches it. He opens it. He listens to the forbidden audio files. And here we are. But going through his room and seeing the evil scriptures and everything, that was a great touch. That was a 10 out of 10. However, overall, still felt like a copy.
It's interesting that you could even differentiate one room from the other, because for me, my big issue was everything in this maze feels the same as you're going through. Pretty much the rooms are all pretty similar looking. You're in a bathroom at some point you're in a hallway, and then the boiler room at the end does look a little different, but it's just an apartment building. It's not a very exciting location for me.
Well, Ed, the movie is an apartment building.
I know, so maybe it wasn't the best, but I felt last year with the horror hotel, as you were moving through these different rooms, it felt you're seeing the history of this hotel. You're seeing these weird murders that took place here, and it felt much more distinct. Like the lady who last year was getting fried in the bathtub versus this year, just the head pops up out of the bathtub. It was not as different. Every scare actor who pops out, no disrespect to the actors, I thought they actually did a fairly good job. They're all just these deadites for the most part. And it gets very repetitive, these kind of zombie. The Deadites a cool enemy in the Evil Dead films. I think in a walkthrough experience, they're a little too human to really work as your main scare. There was one I'd like to call out. There was when you're going down the hallway and doors are opening, there's one Deadite who's kind of a chunky guy, and his intestines are falling out. That was a cool effect. That was a cool costume. And then when you get to the basement at the end, it changes. The scare changes from the Deadites to who I assume is the heroine of the picture with a chainsaw. I love a good chainsaw at Halloween Horror Nights, so that's a welcome addition. But the ending after the chainsaw girl, there's not much there. You see one big monstrous Deadite come out of the shadows. It's an animatronic effect, and there are some great animatronics this year, and this was not one of them. Just kind of slid at you, and then you get scared by the chainsaw heroine a few times, and then it's over. Weak ending.
That I will say that the chimera that I think you're referring to was not great in the movie. That chimera is more active; it chases them. In this film, and in this walkthrough, that chimera is simply a robot that slides forward, slides back. That's it. Yeah. That's the chimera.
Yeah, and we see some great robots this year at Horror Nights, and
yes.
This is bottom of the barrel. One other thing I'd like to call attention to is my last note. I came very prepared. I have notes for this. There is one effect that I saw rewatching these mazes to get ready for this podcast. I didn't even catch the first time. It was a blink and you miss it. There's an effect where there's a woman drowning and it looks like blood in an elevator. That was cool. But going through this maze, it was such a small effect. I didn't even see it happen when I walked through it. I would have loved to see that more prominent or just more creative scenes like that in general.
It felt like such a callback to The Shining, even though when it came to the movie, that scene was, I want to say it was more dramatic than the walkthrough made it seem. And honestly, the walkthrough could have lived without it. That was not a scene that would have been great. What I would have loved to have seen instead of that would have been like if the chimera monster had been more active. If the chimera had was a bigger monster, would have chased us, would have something, was a scare actor, that would have been much better.
I mean, all these mazes, they always go. This is standard across every Horror Nights. They always go for a few different kinds of ending. They have this one. I think is supposed to be a gauntlet where you get scared by pretty much the same thing or a few different things 4 or 5 times in a row, and then you're out. Maybe if you had the chimera as a stilt walker or as an extra big thing, and that's your finale, but a more mobile, more fluid animatronic or someone in a suit, I think that could have had a stronger punch on your way out.
Yeah.
So I think that's all my notes. I've graded all of these mazes, and this one was at the bottom with a D+. But actually talking about that, I feel like I might have to drop it just to a D. I did not enjoy this one.
All right.
Do you have a grade?
Not so much right now. We'll stick with your grading system for now. I feel like we're very close into what we are understanding for this one.
Well, if you disagree, then we'll have separate grades. But for now, Evil Dead Rise, that's going to be a D from us. Yep. All right, Phantom, what's our next maze on the list? I believe, if I remember, it should be the Monstros.
Yes, Monstros. Monsters of Latin America. Now, I will say, Latin America is huge. When people think Latin America, what is the first thing they think? Mexico. No!
Yeah.
Latin America is not just Mexico, guys. So if you're thinking of it's only going to be all the Mexican monsters like La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, or anything like that, no. Latin America is bigger.
I do think this maze got the green light based on the success of the La Llorona maze last year, which itself was a kind of a rerun from several years. Before we started going, there was a very popular La Llorona maze. But I did enjoy the La Llorona last year. So my expectations were higher for this maze, I would say, than for most original mazes. And I thought for the most part it delivered. This wasn't like an A+, knock it out of the park for me, but I did enjoy it. It was a good experience. It had a few unique things and a few good visuals in there. What did you think?
I think the visuals were stunning. I loved the beginning with all the different monsters. My one critique of this maze was there was no plaque or some indication of where these monsters were from. It just says Latin America, and like I said, Latin America is huge. Where is this monster from?
And you do, as you go through, it did have kind of title cards as you encountered each monster. So a little bit more there, I think, would have been interesting to see. This is the one from this country, and this is from this country.
Yeah,
just to give you a little more context of where you're supposed to be.
They did have the name plaque of who the monster was, but it didn't say like, oh, this is the monster from like Peru. This is the monster from like Brazil. That's the touch that I was missing, because I was going through and was like, oh, that's so creepy. Where are you from?
Yeah. I felt... Also, it was odd. I thought there's 3 monsters in this maze. I did not catch the names of them, and frankly, I doubt I could pronounce them if I did. I'm terrible at that sort of thing. But 2 of them are birds.
The birds... Well, if
There's
you think...
There's 2 bird ladies in this maze.
If you think about it, birds have always been kind of creepy.
I guess so. And even the third one, the super tall guy, is a little bird-esque. So it was a little repetitive for me, but they did look different.
They all look very distinct. Similar, not the same.
I have a note about how cool that second, the bird monster who is the big robot who's eating the guy. I thought that looked... I mean, we just talked about a bad robot. I thought that was a great robot. It was very fluid. It was doing a few different things. It was a great set piece. That one I loved.
If Evil Dead Rise, if their Chimera had been like this robot monster, much better. Let's see.
This was a big... it's called Stuff in Face, SIF. Online. Ooh. It's a feature when you go through a maze and there's things hanging from the ceiling, whether it's bodies or I think this was like intestines or hay or whatever that you have to push out of your way. This was a big Stuff in Face maze, and it reminded me a little bit of Scarecrows last year that had that same thing going on.
It did, and not only did that, but they also messed with your sense of smell.
There was a lot of smell in this maze.
If you remember in the butcher section, it smelled like you were in a butcher section.
Even just looking at this maze again, I could smell it.
Yes.
The sense of place in this maze was so strong. It really put you in a rural environment, which again was like Scarecrows a bit last year, and also like La Llorona.
Yes, the forest sections made you smell. You smelled dirt. The butcher section made you smell meat, and like it was both pleasant that your noses was experienced this, but also unpleasant because they don't want you to smell it. It's not supposed to smell good.
I thought the third section of the tall monster, that was my favorite, where you go through the butcher or in that cantina scene. I thought, first of all, that scene, I don't know if it was a butcher or a cantina, whatever it was great gore effects when you walk in there. It looks like this monster has torn through that place, and he's still there ripping the guy apart. He has an effect where he reaches into the body on the bar and tears out the guy's spine. That was amazing. That was a great effect.
Yeah, honestly, if you're hungry, this is not the place for you. This is not.
It depends on what way you have an appetite for.
Well, if you're Hannibal the Cannibal, then this is your spot. But
I did. So that was my highlight. I thought the first section, I mean, I barely realized that it had even begun. I thought, okay, when's the monster going to pop up? Mm-hmm. And then I realized, oh, it's this kind of shorter bird woman who's been attacking me as I've been going through. I thought that was more of a preamble. I thought that was a week, so you're just kind of in the catacombs. It's not really clear what her deal is, where she's from, what she's doing. That was kind of an issue I had with all 3 of these monsters, actually. Their MO isn't made clear if you're not familiar with them going in. In the La Llorona maze, you get it, just going through that maze. You understand what the legend is by the time you're out of that maze. For this one, they're bird people, and the last one puts you in a sack somehow.
That's what I meant. Had there been plaques, as you entered each stage with it doesn't have to be a long history, guys. A quick, facts, this is the monster, this is where they're from, this is their MO.
Well, there is audio going on. There's a voiceover through this whole maze. If they had used that to just kind of set the stage for this is this monster who does this in a creepier way than that. I mean, these are professional writers. They can figure it out.
Yeah.
Because you go in this guy's sack at the end. This is the big kind of finale is, now you're going into the monster sack. It's cool, but it's not set up if you don't already know that something happens. I think we should have seen him putting someone in his sack in an earlier scene that looks scary. Then you realize, oh, now I'm going in there too. That would be scary.
Yeah. One of the things that I loved, the last thing that I loved about this place was as you enter, there's a death is digging a grave. And one of the things it says is oh, who is this for? Why? It's for you, of course. That's how you enter, and that's how you end the maze. I thought that was a great touch.
I have that note as well. I loved that last little stinger at the end. I thought that was a great finale. It was a little funny.
Yeah.
The actor who's digging it's pretty good.
Yeah. For such a scary maze.
I feel like I've complained a lot about this maze when actually it is pretty good. I love the stilt acting for the last segment was fantastic. The set design is so good, such a strong, so immersive.
The smells, the visuals, the scare actors, the animatronics, all on point. But yeah.
But again, for a grade, because of all these things, I feel like I've over-belabored. I've been overly critical. Mm-hmm. But it is only a B+. I do not bring this up to the A level.
I want to say A-. This was one of my favorite mazes, even though lack of information was not great. Overall, I think it's an A- for me.
All right, and maybe we'll see El Chupacabra this year and keep the trend going.
Hey, if we see El Chupacabra, that'd be great, because that means maybe we'll get some goat meat in the food section.
I could go for a Chupacabra Euro, for sure.
All right,
what is our next maze, Phantom?
Well, sticking with the monsters. Universal Monsters. Oh, nice.
Your home maze. Now, I'll come out right out of the gate. I'm just going to say it. This was A+ for me. I love this maze. This is one of my favorite I think I've ever done at Horror Nights. Of all the classic monsters, this was tops for me.
I will say now, and I will say it again, I hate rats and mice. And one of the things that they have you going through is the sound effects of rats and mice. So for me personally, that was my horror. I didn't have to see it. All I had to do was hear it. And I was like, oh, hell no.
I love the idea, this concept that you're in the catacombs of Paris. First off, whatever you're going to do there, I already love it. Great setting for a maze. And I thought pretty well realized where every time you're going through a corridor, very rarely it felt like this is just a blank wall. They always seem to throw some skulls on the wall, so you feel like you're in the catacombs. Mm-hmm. And like you were just talking about the monsters maze, you wanted plaques. There are plaques in this maze.
Yes.
That kind of lead you through.
Not just plaques. They also had visual sound effects that would read out the plaques for you. So, come on, Monsters of Latin America. I know you can do better.
You understand each segment of what's happening very well. You understand the story in this maze. For the Phantom, the story is not that complicated. You know, he's just happened to have killed the girl that he was stalking in the film. Mm-hmm. For the Quasimodo Notre Dame scenes, I thought this was the most complicated story of Esmeralda has been killed somehow, and he's getting revenge now. He's gone a little nuts. And I thought I got that across. That came across in just the one scene.
Yes,
I was very impressed with that.
I feel like if you've only ever seen the animated Disney version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, you will be kind of confused.
Yes, there's no singing gargoyles in this. It's a very different Quasimodo.
Quasimodo is much more, how should I put this, horrific. And his face, his whole personality is darker, as the original was intended to be. Disney kind of does as it does and Disneyed it up for the animated movie.
Yeah.
So when you see this, if you've never seen the original, you will be shocked.
It is a silent film that this is based on. I think that was kind of the trend they were going for this year at the Universal Monsters. We're going to do our very classic silent monster films. Mm-hmm. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was one of those very classic ones.
Yes, and Paris no longer felt like a safe city.
No, and I also loved the effect where he's pouring the molten whatever was supposed to be on you. I thought that was really different.
Towards the end,
where
yes.
He's above you.
Yeah.
That's not something we see a lot in these mazes. I thought that worked really well. Even squirt some water on your face. Some people hate that. I always kind of like it.
It's always a shock because you're not thinking that you're going to become part of the show.
Yeah, but it really draws you in because so often in these mazes you're an observer. And when they can find a way that makes you feel like you're actually in danger now, or you're the target, or even if they find a way, which they'll do later on this maze, that the observer is an active part of the scene, I love that in a maze, and this maze had that in spades.
In a way, they broke the fourth wall, I would say.
I don't know if they break the fourth wall so much as they pull you into it. They pull you past the fourth wall.
That's a good one.
And I do have to walk back a little bit about what I said about this being an A+ maze, because there was one glaring flaw, and that was Dr. Jekyll, who I thought was a real... It was not great. It was very reminiscent of the Wolfman in last year's maze. He only really has one scene. It's an okay transformation scene, and the design just looks like Wolfman. I do not get Mr. Hyde from that design.
There was no Mr. Hyde, let's be real. It's just Dr. Jekyll. You can kind of see him when he's about to go into transformation mode, but you walk past it too fast for him to finish.
Yeah, he has a few scenes where he pops out of you, but again, he looks like a werewolf. He does not look like any interpretation of Mr. Hyde we've seen.
I accidentally mistook him for the Hunchback for one of those scenes, because, as you said, he looks nothing like Mr. Hyde.
Yeah. But luckily, that is a short segment of the maze. I think there's also a flaw. I mean, Mr. Hyde is a pretty major monster. People know that one. Maybe they should have put more into that. But the next scene I love so much, where you go into kind of this murder theater.
Oh,
the idea that there's this secret nightclub in the catacombs of Paris where these monsters congregate and do evil deeds. That's also an amazing concept. I thought it was pretty well executed. I love, this is the scene where I'm talking about where the observer's part of the scene. You go in there and it's like you're watching the show along with the dead of him murdering this woman on stage.
That was a very epic scene where he just breaks her in half.
Yeah.
And you're like, who's watching who? And it was an amazing scene. The dead patrons there.
Yeah, if you turn to your right on your way out, you see all the whole audience is skeletons.
Yes.
But well dressed. So there is a dress code.
Of course. It's horror nights, not your any day kind of dress. It's horror nights. And lest
we brush past it too fast, the invisible man offering to take your coat. I thought that was a great effect. We went on this maze twice, and him reaching out at you got me both times. And we're such veterans of Horror Nights at this point. It takes a lot for a scare to actually get me in a maze. So to get grabbed by that guy twice, I thought was incredible.
He was really good at hiding, because that section is very dark, very spooky, and when he just kind of appears, you just like, whoa.
They've done a lot of different backlight effects over the years, and this I thought was their most successful by far. And then it ends with another gauntlet, like we talked about with the Evil Dead, where all the monsters at once are attacking you, but it enhances that by adding the Stiltwalker Mask of Red Death from the original Phantom of the Opera silent film. Another iconic monster that they got in there right at the end. I love that as well. Anytime there's a Stiltwalker, I'm happy. But I thought, especially if it's Mask of the Red Death Stiltwalker, then I'm home.
Ah, okay. I think, so at the end, do you want to change your grade, or is it still...
One thing also I need to call out for this one, there's two more that I didn't get to talk about in our little walkthrough there. It was another stuff in face effect. As you walk into the title cards, it has just hanging little bits of almost nothing, but it creates an effect of film grain, like you are watching an old movie.
Oh, I know
and
you're
actually entering into the screen because you're moving through the graininess.
Mm-hmm.
That really blew my mind. I loved that when I saw that. And just an overall, the actors in this maze were incredible. We called out the Invisible Man already. I thought Quasimodo also incredible. Even though he's not directly attacking you for most of his big scenes, he has such a presence. Even if you're not familiar with the movie, you instantly understand his character and his motivations just from the way he's moving and the way he looks. And the phantom actors, even though they're just sitting at that piano, they will snatch out at you, and that got me too.
I did not foresee him reaching out for you while he was playing the piano. I thought he was just going to be playing the piano, we walk right through and have our merry way. When he reached out, he got me there the first time just because I did not foresee him stopping his piece and reaching out.
It's a great scare. Any maze that can get someone who's been doing this for 6 years twice in the same maze, I think that gets an A+ in scares. So I do have it marked as an A. I unfortunately I can't give it the A+ because the A+ has to be perfect, and those Mr. Hyde scenes, that was a miss.
I feel like that's a good score.
Okay,
I'll concur.
All right, and I believe now we're moving on to Chucky.
Yes, your favorite doll
is your friend to the end. Why don't you talk about this one first? I think on this one we have differing opinions, so let's see how we.
Well, before you even enter the maze, the first thing you see if you're unfortunate enough to stand in line, you will see a wall of Chuckies where there's about 2 or 3 demented Chuckies that are always bickering, and one kind of happy-go-lucky Chucky that stirs the ire of the other 3.
That's so poetic for a child's play maze. What did you think overall? What was your impression?
I think overall, they did a good representation of trying to connect all the movies to this maze. However, I don't know if you noticed or if I missed it, I did not see any interpretation of Child's Play 3 here. With Child's Play 3, just to remind people, is when Andy is 16 and is in military school.
Well, this one, I believe it was heavily based on the TV show.
Yes, it was in the TV show, but in the TV show, there were still elements of Bride of Chucky.
They had the lore. But I'm just talking overall. Did you love it? Did you hate it?
I liked it.
You liked it. Now,
I not loved it. Liked.
This one I also loved. I thought this little... You walk through Harry Potter land and you're at the little duology of mazes. I thought these two were the highlights of the night for me. I loved the amount of Chucky in this maze. I never was a big Chucky fan, but I feel like Chucky's really having a moment right now.
Yes, he is.
In the culture. For somehow, he's really come back strong. And I'm kind of getting into it. And this maze is definitely part of it. I loved how much Chucky there was. He was everywhere in this maze. And that was such an experience going through it of you're always looking around wondering where is he going to pop out of next. And they had a few different ways of presenting him. The best, of course, were just the amount of Chucky animatronics in this maze was amazing. There were so many.
Yes, there was. And there was one moment where, if you remember this, when you're going through the forest and there's a little Chucky actor, but then there's a giant Chucky animatronic.
And that's another really fun way to show it. That was an animatronic. That was a guy in a suit.
No.
Yeah.
I swear that was an animatronic.
That was a scare actor. They also had earlier on, they have scare actors who will pop out of walls, and they have a Chucky stapled to their back, stabbing at them. That's always a fun... I think we've seen something like that before, but it was a fun way to get Chucky in the maze.
Yes, there was another one where one thing I loved, was, like you said, was the amount of Chucky there, but the fact that Chucky was also all these family portraits that you see around.
They worked in the absolutely bizarrely intricate Chucky lore into this maze in a pretty big way, considering how weird it is. Where his bride and his Glenda, the son or daughter of Chucky, it's unclear.
I did research on this. It turns out it's actually two spirits inhabiting the same doll.
Glenn and Glenda. That's true. They do separate into separate children at the end of the movie.
And not Bride and Seed of Chucky, when you see those two kids, it's actually because there was two different souls, Glenn and Glenda.
You've heard it here first, folks. Exclusive to the Hollywood horror nerds, Glenda has two souls. Glenn/Glenda, the evil doll of Chucky's progeny.
Chucky's progeny is technically two different souls inhabiting the same body.
But they did have those nods to the history of the franchise. It had such a great respect for Chucky. You had, I'm going to mispronounce this guy's name, Brad Dourif, I think, the voice actor for Chucky. He's recording a lot of original material for this maze. I thought that was really cool. You don't see that very often, where the actor actually gets involved. The kills were good. I loved... Just to go through some of these areas, you go right into the house, and that first room you go into is just carnage. I mean, these bodies are ripped apart. Chucky made a mess of this. I thought that was great. And I believe this was also from the show. I've seen the first season. I haven't seen the new seasons, but a lot of this seemed like it was a rip from the first season. And I do remember him tearing through a few homes in that show. I remember you go into the kitchen, the scene where the person's fallen face first on the knives in the dishwasher. That was from the show. The scene in the basement where he's electrocuting the guy by spitting water, that was definitely in the show. Although, if I remember correctly, he wasn't spitting. He was using a different orifice to get the water on that guy to electrocute him.
Was that the show, or was that one of the movies? Because I remember this.
It was in the show. It may be in a movie as well.
Because I remember it was not the old movies. I'm talking about the new movies where he becomes another child's toy who lives in also lives in an apartment. But... yeah, I think he is possible. I think it's
the point is they pay so much homage to the franchise, and a franchise maze like this, that's what I want. I want to feel like I'm in Child's Play.
Yes,
and that's what you get in this maze.
You start off by essentially being in the store that started it all.
The Good Guy Doll Factory.
Yeah.
This is the only maze that ever got a legitimate laugh out of me over any year at Horror Nights when he pops out of the bathtub. Yeah, I don't know why that just got me. That was a funny scene.
It's also I think the only maze that kind of I think he doesn't he swear at you throughout the maze.
Oh, Chucky swears at everything.
Yes, yeah. It's the only maze where you're gonna get someone swearing at you. And, speaking of, I love Chucky's kill count.
It's such a fun concept of the maze that he's counting up, which is also from the show. He does this at the end of this season. He goes through all his kills. But the idea that he's showing you his greatest hits.
Yes.
And then at the end, he's adding you to his kill count as well. The finale where he pops out with a pipe bomb. Great finale.
That was such a good interpretation, good way of incorporating the lore, the show all together, and just Chucky's personality in general.
You get the Chucky personality comes through in a big way.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that they had these original voice lines and the original video recorded for the maze. Now, I'm going to ask you if you were able to pick this up, because there was a storyline to this maze that I didn't think the maze really got across very well, which is Chucky killing Horror Nights influencers, which I guess we are now. Which there's a little bit of that going through the video, knowing that's the storyline, or that's part of the storyline. I could remember 2 instances where there's someone, that's supposed to be like a guy filming a video as he goes through the maze and Chucky's getting him. But it felt odd that they had that element, and yet it was not really clear. Did you pick that up at all?
I did not.
Yeah.
I want to say I wish I had, but no, I did not pick that up at all.
I remember when they were presenting this to the media before the event started, and I read all those articles, and that was a big part of it. They were talking about this is, it's going to be easy. He's getting all the influencers that everyone hates, which we see a similar theme at the Terror Tram this year, which we'll get to, I think.
Oh, yes. I can't wait to talk about that.
It was a bit of a throwaway here, but unlike the Jekyll thing, that doesn't really detract from my enjoyment of the maze. It's an odd little side note. So overall, I gotta give Chucky the A+.
He deserved that A+. He killed you in such a great way. All the different rooms, the family scenes, the one when he's going to when he's talking with you, he pulls you in with those different videos as you enter each section. Yeah. Especially when he went, now for the Christmas section.
It's a maze that as soon as you're done, I immediately wanted it to go on again, and that's pretty rare.
Yes.
You don't want it to end. So it gets the A+ for me. And just one note, let's keep track as we go through the event this year. There is a forest scene in this one. And there are a lot of at least I thought there were a lot of forest scenes this year. I don't know why, but that would seem to be a big theme. So
I think they wanted to really incorporate try out their new forest smells, because
a lot of smells this year.
There were a lot of smells, a lot of foresty smells, and I think they just really wanted to try this out, see how people felt about it. I personally love the forest scenes because the foliage really kind of hides the actors, and then it's better than just jumping out at you from a black screen or a door.
I thought the forest scenes were very well done. It felt like you were in a forest every time. But about the 4th time I walked into a forest scene, I was like, oh, this again.
Yeah.
They should have mixed up a little bit. But I think that's it for Chucky. Are we missing anything? I think we've been pretty thorough on him.
I think we're good on him.
All right. So now what's next up?
It's the Terror Tram.
Exterminators.
Yes. If you hate bugs and insects, this is not your ride.
It gave a new meaning to the words Roach Motel.
Oh, no. The one thing I loved about this one, as Ed said about Chucky, was with him killing the influencers, you will see more influences in this one. As you get off on the tram and start the walkthrough...
For the Bates Motel
area, what do you see? A Karen complaining.
Yeah, you see the Karen, you see the girl...
The influencer.
Live streaming her own murder by the insects.
You see the little boy who can't get off his screen, his phone.
Yeah, he doesn't even notice.
Yes.
I thought it's a clever idea of the insects are striking back and they're going to exterminate the people now. It's a fun idea. It was well executed. It gave them opportunities to use a lot of different designs for monsters. Kind of the fly exterminator I thought was a little overused, but I'll forgive it because it's the Terror Tram. It's kind of what it is. And I loved this Larry Larva character, who was kind of your host for the whole event. I thought that was a great design with the mutton chops and kind of the gross eyes. Great, the kind of this slimy used car salesman personality. Yes. It was really fun. It wasn't like a scary maze, but it was a very fun maze.
It was very funny, which was not what I expected. It was a lot of the only times where they draw you in was when they squirt you with the spray or water.
I don't remember what it was called. They had a weird name for it.
Yes, it had a weird name for it, but essentially they're squirting you, and I didn't see that coming at all because you kind of turn to make a bend, and as you make the other side of the bend, that's where they squirt you with water, and I was not looking forward to that. I got wet. I was not amused. It was night, so I was not going to drive.
Yeah. And it's not fun getting wet there like it's fun on the Jurassic World ride.
Yeah. When you don't see it coming, it's not that great. Especially because it wasn't like a mist. This was getting you wet.
I thought there were a few missteps in this maze. The spider alley right after the Bates Motel, that was a big nothing for me.
I expected a lot more scariness from that one. And just to have things just stand there and nothing comes out at you.
I mean, spiders are scary. And yet you don't see any spiders in there. That was odd. Maybe we just went through when the spiders were in transition. That's possible. But that was a weak section.
It was overall not
the big... Well, we'll talk about the nope section at the end. Let's stick on the Larry Larva section. One thing I thought was really clever was at some point you go into one of his tents and he has... like a cheeseburger and pie, and it takes me a minute to realize, this is like human bait. Like we put out bait for food. He's putting out bait for humans. That's clever, but I don't think the payoff for that was strong enough.
No, definitely.
I would have liked to see that in action more, because it was such a clever idea.
It was a good idea, but just not very well executed, in my opinion.
Yeah, but overall, I did enjoy the Larry Larva maze, apart from those few missteps. Mm-hmm. What I did not enjoy so much is the nope section. Now, I understand some of you probably love Nope and you love Jordan Peele. I saw Us, and then Us is the worst movie I've ever seen all the way through. I was upset. I was angry that I paid money to see Us. I really hated it. My expectations were so high because Get Out was a great movie.
Great movie.
Jordan Peele, I love Key and Peele. I think he's a talented guy. I hated Us. I loathed it. So when Nope came out, that was a big nope for me.
I didn't watch... I've never watched Nope or Us, but like you said, I did watch Get Out. And after you had told me your experience with Us, I was like, you know what? It's not for me. So
yeah. So going through for the second year in a row now too, and it's so disjointed from this Larry Larva scene. Why can't it just be an extension of now it's going to be the roaches trying to get you on the Western set? I don't know why we had to rope back in Us and Nope into it.
I guess they just really wanted to use that space because you still had to walk through that area.
Yeah, I don't hate walking through the area because it could be anywhere on the studio tours. It's always fun to walk through the sets, even if it's a movie. I like War of the Worlds is also not my favorite movie, but I still love walking through that set. Would I love walking through it as much if there was a scare actor playing Tom Cruise? Probably not. And that's my complaint about Us. It's just stuck in there at the end. It's a bit like when you go on the studio tour during the day, and it's a great event until they stick this Fast and Furious ride in at the end, and it's terrible. It drags the whole thing down. That's how I feel about this Us.
I think what would have gone great, I don't know how great it might have been, now that I think about it more, but if they had incorporated Us with Larry Larva such that the cockroaches are attacking even the Us people.
That would have been funny. If the Us people are there trying to be scary and then the cockroaches ambush them.
Yes.
That would have been really funny, actually. That would be a plus.
Yes, if the aliens were being attacked by the roaches as well.
That would have been cool. That's not where they went. I understand, of course, this second probably has its fans. If you just love Jordan Peele, you loved Us, you loved Nope, you probably hope this comes back every year. I was done with it after 1 year. I hope next year they put something else in there. I forgot to grade this one, but I think overall, probably a B. It's a solid Terror Tram.
I want to say B-. It could have been better.
It's hard to do stuff in this space because you're limited to the same path. We've seen it. If you go to this event regularly, you've seen the Bates Motel walk, you've seen the house walk, you've seen the War of the Worlds walk, you've seen the Nope walk. So it's hard to keep it fresh. I thought they did a good job of that by having these really innovative costumes. Very creative idea this year.
That is true. It's harder to scare people when it's an open space versus an enclosed area like a house.
But overall, I mean, the Terror Tram, you got to do it. You got to walk on the back lot. I think this was a good year for it.
Yes. A lot of people don't realize if it's the first time, they think the Terror Tram, you're just going to... It's like the tour where they come at you. No, you get off and you walk.
I think that's an experience everyone has their first time they go to Horror Nights.
Yeah.
And it stops and you realize I'm now going to get off and walk on Bates Motel. It's like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's what you get at Hollywood that you don't get at other theme parks that will not be mentioned. Right, so I believe now we're going to move into the lower lot mazes.
Yes.
Alvaro, what's our first one down there?
Out of all the strange things we experience, Stranger Things 4.
Perhaps the strangest thing.
Okay.
This one I did not have many notes for, which is funny because it's a long maze. Why don't you go first, and I'll play off you.
I think what I loved about it is as you enter the maze, the favorite scene that has become iconic and almost memeable is what Eddie Munchkin is trying to recall Chrissy. Chrissy, wake up. Yeah. I like
that too. It was a
Chrissy,
strong...
wake up.
This may start strong.
Yes.
And it's a great set. They did a great job making it look like the trailer. The floating person set they used in Exorcist as well this year, I thought it was a good effect.
Mm-hmm.
There's another forest in this one. I'm just pointing that out. The forest scene is back.
Are we going to have a forest count?
We're having a forest. This is 2.
This is Chucky.
We got Chucky and Stranger. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. You go through, and I can remember it semi-clear, you go through the forest, and you see Vecna. You see Vecna a lot in this maze.
I didn't like that,
It was too much Vecna, which part of that is just due to the nature of this property. There is really one monster.
Yes.
But you could have done more. You could have brought in the Russian scenes and had the Demogorgon could have been there, or maybe a Russian guard, or maybe the bullies who were, these murderous Stephen King-esque bullies.
The one thing that I did like at the beginning that wasn't a bully or a kind of a villain, but still kind of spooked you, was Eddie Munchkin's all of a sudden comes out the door, and he kind of, if you're not expecting, he kind of spooks you.
The one that got me is the Steve Harrington when you go into the Vecna house at the end. I thought whoever did that actor, that got me in real life twice, and it got me also in the video twice. Whoever that was did a great job. He comes at you with the axe too, having the weapon. Always helps those effects.
Let's see.
I feel like this maze wasn't awful. It felt like a missed opportunity in a lot of places.
Yeah, my greatest critique was just the amount of Vecna actors who were not that scary. They just overplayed it. It wasn't great. Like
in their defense, that's a pretty bulky costume. I think it's a similar situation to the Killer Clowns almost, where you're wearing a big flesh suit. There's only so much you can do with that range of motion.
Fair enough. But
I just think when you see him for the 5th or 6th time, you're not afraid of it anymore.
It's a little bit of overkill, like we mentioned earlier. If they had used different actors, one part of it that they really draw you into the scene is when they're in the staircase and the 2 actors are portraying a scene, and you feel like you're watching it happen.
Max and I forgot the other kid's name.
Yes, you really feel like you're there.
Yeah.
They really draw you into it, and I thought that was a great, because at one point he's involuntarily scares you because you don't see it. You think it's just a scene playing out, but then when he lunges kind of at you, that's when you're
because you get a little immersed.
Yes, you get a little immersed you get lost in the sauce at this point.
Something that really stood out in this maze I thought was odd is this very strong transition between the forest and then you have this weird room that's like the desert room to go in the bunker. But then you don't even go in the bunker. You go into the Hawkins lab in the past. So that desert scene is really odd. It is really, why is that there?
No idea. The one thing that I wish they had incorporated, I don't know how logistically how it would have worked. However, had they had Eddie playing his solo concert,
that's another. This is what I'm talking about. It's a missed opportunity.
Yes,
I thought this season of Stranger Things, the ending was a little but the horror element was so much stronger than it had been in the past. I was excited to see this maze, and it wasn't bad. It was not a bad maze. I give it a B. Spoiler alert. But it could have been an A, and I think that Eddie playing the guitar scene, that's something I think everyone wanted to see. That was the moment from the show this year.
Yes.
And they did license the music. It's playing in their Stranger Things Starlight Bar. Why is it not playing in the maze? I don't know if that's a separate contract that they couldn't get Metallica to agree to or it's too expensive. But it just seemed odd that was a big miss.
There was only one bat scene, one devil bat, and it's only attacking one person, and you never really see them for more than a split second.
The ending is odd, where you see the 11 tearing apart the Vecna actor, and maybe that's a Vecna statue at that point. I don't know. I think 11's a hard role to cast for Horror Night.
Yes,
because Millie Bobby Brown is a very iconic look to her. You recognize her. That's her, and you see that 11 actress, and you instantly, oh, that's not 11.
Yeah.
And 11 always wears such strange costumes. So the weird, what was like a warm, I don't know, it's a weird sweater kind of thing she has on. It just looks strange.
I did love those lab scenes just because it's just like you said, it's reminiscent of the past. And of course, this season, that's what it was about, was 11 going back to get her lost powers. However, I felt like they could have done better in the lab scenes, a little bit more than just standing and just... They didn't even incorporate her into scaring you. It was more like you're watching a scene play out. That
probably would have been a great place. You could have had a different scare. You could have had maybe young Vecna tearing people apart. Mm-hmm. You could have had the military when they come into the bunker to get 11. That could have been in there. There were opportunities that got missed. And the ending, after you see the 11 Vecna confrontation, you go through like the snowball prom, which I think was in season 2 or 3. I don't think it was in season 4.
No.
I don't know why that was the ending at all.
No.
This sounds very negative. Again, I didn't hate this maze. I feel like, but I do feel like when you walk out, the first thing you wonder is, oh, why wasn't this there? Or that was odd.
Yeah.
So it gets a B from me.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that I definitely would have appreciated had they been more incorporated. The biggest, again, was the Eddie Munkin scene. The concert scene would have been great. I would have been scared. I would have loved it at the same time. There were more bats. That would have been another thing.
You could have thrown the Eddie playing the guitar with Dustin on the left and had an actor pop out from your right. No one would be looking at it. It would have scared everyone.
Yes.
But I have to assume it was a rights issue with the music. And they felt, we can't do this if we can't get the Metallica because that's so tied into it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, but even accepting that, there were misses here.
To be honest, this maze had a lot less jump scares and just things just kind of appearing in a sense. They weren't that scary. It was just like, it was a lot of you seeing scenes from the show.
Just walking through the show. And maybe that's what Netflix wants. Maybe Netflix will say, hey, this is a little more of a family-friendly show. We have a big, younger fan base. We don't want to make it too intense. That's possible. That might be the reason behind some of it.
It could be, but... Again, most of the people that go to horror nights tend to be slightly older.
I see a lot of kids there every year.
Well, 17 up for the most part, but yes, there's a lot. A lot of people are bringing like small children, which
we don't encourage that on this podcast.
Yes, why are you bringing?
But keep listening to us, even if you do, and make sure they listen to as well, and tell all their friends. So overall, Stranger Things 4 for me is B. Would you agree, or you want to go lower? I don't think you're going to go higher.
I want to go B-.
Okay.
It was a lot of missed opportunities for me.
I wouldn't go all the way to C though. It wasn't awful. It had some unique things.
Yeah.
You saw when you saw the characters you wanted to see.
Yeah. But
all right, what's up next?
In some lighter news, we're going to take a holiday trip.
The holidays with a Z.
The holidays in hell.
Now this one I like, but it is a repeat maze. We have seen it before.
It was here last year, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think 2 years ago.
Was it?
I think so. It wasn't last year.
It was within the past.
It's been pretty recent.
Yeah, it was. It's
not a case of like La Llorona where she left for a long time and came back. This was here recently. I think they reused most of the sets, most of the costumes, but it is a good maze. I do enjoy this one.
It was very enjoyable. The dark aspect of each holiday was very nice.
There's such a diversity of different scenes, and it's a good idea because each scene is so distinct from the next that you're never bored.
The one thing that that didn't need to have any particularly like scary elements because it's already kind of scary in real life was the 4th of July room.
The gore room is
yes.
Good. Let's go through these holidays in order. I think that's the best way to talk about this maze because they are so distinct from one another.
Fair enough.
So you walk in. I love the facade. I think the stilt walker Father Time is pretty cool.
Yes.
The demented baby New Year who's like the evil twisted virgin.
Oh God, he was
it's
so
funny
weird
and scary at the same time. I like that. So New Year's, that gets a thumbs up from me.
What was it? February 14th.
You're skipping
February 14th.
Now, the Valentine's Day, I thought was weak. I thought the Cupids don't look like Cupid.
They don't.
You just did a really funny evil baby with New Year's, and you completely dropped the ball with the evil Cupid. And it teases this idea in the poster as you walk in of like the evil tunnel of love, and I think this is going to be cool. You're going to see like a couple in the swan boat, but they're stuck full of arrows from Cupid, shooting real arrows at them. And instead, it's this bizarre, twisted murder wedding. I don't really understand the story there.
It didn't make sense, honestly.
Because a wedding, if it had been like you're killing the bride and groom, but they're just chained up and you're killing someone else, it was strange.
It was weak. Honestly, this was one of the weaker rooms.
So this was for me the weakest room.
Yeah, but
and then we go into. Do you have more to add?
No.
Okay, yeah, this is kind of whatever.
Yeah.
The St. Patrick's Day, I like.
That was good.
The leprechaun design.
Yes.
Is very good. A little ripping off the Warwick Davis movie, but how can you not? That was kind of also ripping off the Leprechaun of Legend or Lucky Charms even, so we'll forgive it. There is one little factoid that annoys me. It annoyed me the first time as well, which is when you go into the Leprechaun cottage. This might be news to you as well, Phantom. When this was unveiled at Midsummer Scream 3 years ago, it was one of these mazes that the creative designer of Universal Studios Horror Nights previewed. For this scene in particular, I remember it because it was such a cool idea, is the kids are looking for the gold.
Yes.
And they get to his cottage, and the leprechaun is pouring molten gold onto the kid's head.
Oh.
Kind of like in Game of Thrones, but gorier.
Yeah, okay.
Which is a cool idea. That's why when you walk in there, it smells. That smell is supposed to be molten gold smell.
Oh.
But when they actually put that in the maze, I've never been able to see it because people complain this is too scary, it's too violent, and they took it out. So it feels like there's this big buildup of he's saying, oh, you after me gold, you after me gold. You go in the spooky cottage, there's nothing there.
So what I'm hearing, it's the people that's the problem.
The people were the problem on this maze. Still, I do like the leprechaun design, and I'm going to count it as a forest.
It was a forest.
It's a forest.
I mean, where else would the leprechaun lives?
Ireland's very green.
I did love that they didn't look too much like Lucky Charms leprechauns.
A little bit. They looked
a little bit.
Evil Lucky Charms.
But evil Lucky Charms. This isn't your kid's cereal, Lucky Charms.
The next room was Easter Bunny. I thought the bunnies looked pretty funny.
They were.
This was funny. This is a comedy maze.
Yeah, this
is a funny maze. Yeah.
The Easter bunnies look cute but deadly.
Cute but deadly. They got a chuckle out of me. It was not like a standout room.
No, but
moving to the 4th of July, the gore effects are good.
The gore effects and
the
4th
kid
of
is blown
July.
off. I do also remember in the preview for this one 2 years ago, his hands were blown off as well.
Every finger was a knob, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, 4th of July is already scary enough itself. It doesn't need extra because
I feel like 2 or 3 years ago there was also an evil Uncle Sam that I don't remember from this year. I don't know if that's a false memory or what.
It could have been like a reminiscent of Purge, because I remember there was an Uncle Sam in Purge.
Even if it's a false memory, there should have been one. So I'm still counting it against it.
I mean, Uncle Sam wouldn't be 4th of July. I think Uncle Sam would be more like Veterans Day.
For Halloween, which is the next in the list, it was very reminiscent of the end of the Halloween 2 maze from way back when, 2016. When you go into the pumpkin at the end. They have kind of that same effect, but not as strong because there's no Michael Myers popping at you this time, which is kind of generic pumpkin guys.
There wasn't really anything popping out in this room.
Yeah, the Halloween was kind of a miss.
It was a hard miss.
For a Halloween event.
Yes, that's what was my biggest complaint about this one is it's a Halloween event. It's a holiday of
Halloween.
Yes, it's the holidays of hell, and then the holiday for the whole reason for this. You dropped the ball. I
would have either gone bigger on the Halloween or just not had it and say, we're a Halloween event. We don't have to have the Halloween holiday. I would have been fine with that as well. The next was Thanksgiving, which is fine. I thought it was really obvious.
The turkey that attacks you was, of course.
And of course they're eating a human head. It reminded me of the Eli Roth Thanksgiving trailer attached to Grindhouse. It's a real movie now.
Ooh.
We're not being paid to promote it, so I won't promote it. But it is out there.
But we can, and we will.
If you would like, if whoever makes that movie, Eli Roth, our phones are open for you.
Yes.
So it was okay. Very expected. And the Christmas I liked, also a little obvious, but I love Krampus. Anything Krampus, I enjoy. So I enjoyed the Christmas and another forest. That's 2 in 1 maze.
The Krampus aspect of it, he still looked like Santa. He wasn't typical Krampus.
It was a more Santa-y Krampus.
Yes.
It was more like the traditional German Krampus than from the film Krampus.
Yes. It was a very I like the scene because I love Christmas, so I love anything Christmas related. But yes, this was a very Santa Clausy looking Krampus.
I also appreciated in this Christmas segment that it wasn't just Krampus. There were demented elves as well, so it was a variety of scare actors to keep it fresh.
It was a good room.
If I remember correctly, I believe they also blasted the AC in this one to really give you
it was
winter
cold.
chill feeling.
Yeah.
This maze in general, there was a lot of smell as well. This was a big smell of
It was
maze.
gingerbread. It was
for different holidays. You
Yeah.
went through different smells, which I enjoy the smell-o-vision. I think it's cool.
the smell-o-vision.
That's what I call it.
Yes.
But so overall for me, this would be an A minus. Even with a few weak scenes, overall, I love the variety. It's fresh the whole way through. But it's a repeat. I gotta knock it a point. I gotta bring it out to B plus.
I think for me it was just a B.
It was
a solid B for. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was somewhere pretty good. It had elements of greatness with the leprechauns, with the Christmas room, but also had areas that was lacking, like the Halloween.
Yeah.
The
I feel like it's more than the sum of its parts.
yeah.
Because I remember it quite fondly.
That is true
Yeah.
because again, they're holidays. You're supposed to remember them.
Yeah, very nostalgic there.
Yes.
We always ate a human head around the table at my Thanksgivings.
Doesn't everyone?
I have to assume so.
Okay.
And next, I believe, is...
Well, speaking of believers.
Oh. The Exorcist.
Believers. Yes, do not get it confused with the 1973 movie The Exorcist.
That one's actually good.
Wow, Ed. Tell us how you feel.
If I was being paid by Universal, I would feel very differently. Actually, I haven't seen The Exorcist Believer, so I really shouldn't talk. Have you seen it?
I have not, but I did see the whole 6-minute recap of this movie because I felt that was enough. It felt very very weak.
Now, this is a fascinating maze because it was developed for this movie, but it was released. This maze came out before the movie was out, and they said they designed it as kind of a walkthrough trailer for the movie. So I feel like you don't have to see the movie to evaluate this maze.
That is true.
Walking in, I love that first room that you walk in. I believe it's Haiti. I haven't seen the movie, but later on there's a poster about Haiti, and this has a Caribbean vibe. So I assume this first street you walk through is Haiti.
The opening of the movie is actually about the I forget the girls' names, but her parents are vacationing in Haiti while her mother's pregnant with her.
And you see, and it's a great scene. It's a very well done intro where it's a strong sense of place. And you see this kind of burnt up, blackened doll that appears several times through the maze. And this gave me a real sense of story of this maze. This doll is somehow connected to this demon you see all the time, and that's what's possessing the girls. So I thought as a trailer maze concept, it did a good job of still giving me a story.
Yeah, it was really good overall. I didn't know that aspect, that it was supposed to be more of a trailer maze. But now that I'm knowing that, I would say that it did a good job of telling you the story without it being explicitly telling you the story. Go ahead.
I thought the first half of this maze was stronger than the second half. You do walk through a few of these hallways. They're just kind of these nothing hallways.
Yeah.
But you do also move through a good variety of locations. You have the Haitian street. You have the forest. Again, just another forest. You have what smells like a stables. You're then in a hospital. Then once you're in what I assume is the girl's home where the exorcism happens, you're just stuck there. You go through these samey looking rooms over and over, a little reminiscent of the Evil Dead Rise maze. I didn't love that part. But this first part, I thought, kept me engaged. There's a really good drum beat going on in the forest.
It gives you a nice voodoo, because I think the aspect of this film was, a lot of it was related to voodoo, because they were in Haiti. I believe they did a spell with the pregnant mother. So it was.
I wouldn't have done that. I'll take your word for it. Again, I haven't seen the film or the recap.
The one thing I did love about this house that I don't recall any of the house doing was the disappearing, reappearing rooms.
I have a note about that too. This was a good effects maze for that. And it also has the girl, attached to the ceiling. You can see how they do that. It's a dummy, and she's throwing up on the ceiling, so there's a wire in there, obviously. But it still looks cool. is a good effects maze. You see the scares are a problem in this maze. You see that same demon. It's the Vecna problem. You see him over and over and over. And the alternative scare are these little girls. And they have kind of evil little girl faces, but they're still little girls. They cast short scare actors for this. It did not scare me. It's like, oh, it's a little girl coming at me.
Yeah.
She has scissors, but I was not afraid of it.
The one part of the film / movie that I loved was that one of the scenes in the film, if you watch the recap or watch the film, is that one of them, she's kind of going through possession while she's at church. Fun fact, I've always wanted, if I ever had the superpowers to fake a possession, I would want to do it at church. Because there's nothing funnier to me, in my personal opinion, than taking what is supposed to be a holy place and doing something possession-like.
Well, if you've seen the original Exorcist, I believe the demon has the same idea with the statue.
Yes.
But if you haven't seen the original Exorcist, we do recommend that movie, even though we are not being paid to promote it. It's very good.
But again, we will. And we will.
If you would like to promote us, Mortar Brothers, our the phone line is open.
You can contact us anyway. Smoke signals, mail.
Smoke signal is preferred. Now, once you're in the home, and I assume the exorcism is happening, I found the story hard to follow. Maybe that's because they're going for this walkthrough trailer vibe. You're not supposed to get the whole story. That's possible. But regardless, I couldn't follow what was going on. Just scenes of kind of random things happening, and then it's over.
Yeah, it was but still, it was a pretty good.
There was another cool effect where the wall cracks and they have kind of LEDs behind it.
Yeah,
so it looks like it's cracking in front of you. That was cool. Again, good effects maze.
It was good effects. It was a good. Again, it's a lot of smells.
Smells were bad in this one.
Yeah,
it smelled bad,
which was intended.
It's intended.
Yeah. It's intended.
That's a plus. At this event, smelling bad can be a plus.
Yes. I just want to make that clear that it was intended to smell bad because, again, you're in a barn. Barns are not notorious for smelling like great because there's animal feces around. And this was supposed to be a horse barn.
So overall, I gave this one a B-. Effects were good. The first half pretty good, but drags in the end and not great for the scares.
I want to give it a better score. I think it's a B+.
Okay, a little dissent here.
I really enjoyed the effects of the walkthroughs and the scares and the disappearing, reappearing walls, all that. I just didn't appreciate that the same demon was attacking. If they had like the little girls more, or if there was more of the scenes where there was voodoo happening. If there had been voodoo, I felt like it would have been much better. Like if they had like someone performing the voodoo, then she goes from doing the spell to like attacking you. That would have been great.
That would have been cool. That would have been very different.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if it fits with the movie.
It does.
Okay. You're telling me it does. I'll trust my friend the Phantom.
I'll trust the recap.
And I believe we're into the last maze of the night, though we may want to talk about a few more things before we wrap here. And fittingly, I believe the last maze is The Last of Us. Am I correct?
It is.
So I'll level with our audience. I have not played The Last of Us. Neither have I seen the show, although I do know this maze is based on the game, not the TV show.
Correct. I will say that you will notice there was not a lot of the elements of the TV show. If you haven't watched the TV show, I highly recommend. I've watched the TV show. I watched it every week when it came out. It was a great TV show. It's what I hear, because I didn't play the game, is that it's very close to the game. The music is the game's music, and which I love that music. It's a great music. Overall, I think
what I thought, you can tell this is a video game maze. It feels like you're going through a level in a video game, which is very clear. Get to the goal. There's obstacles in the way. Mm-hmm. These enemies are popping out that need to be defeated. I thought that was very cool. It was a very different style than we usually see or like through a movie. This felt like a game.
It did. And with that in mind, I felt like this house overall didn't have a lot of jump scares.
This is my big minus. The scares it was a lot of, I guess, these raider type characters.
Yeah.
Who I always hate that in zombie movies to begin with, but for this scenario especially, a guy jumping out at you when I'm at Halloween Horror Nights, I expect it to be a monster. If I want a guy to jump out at me, I'll walk through the bad part of town at night.
No.
Even the zombies, it felt a lot like those Walking Dead mazes, which I think we've all seen enough of. Even though I know they're mushroom zombies this time, but a zombie's a zombie. You do get some unique ones at the end. The burning one at the very end is pretty cool. The one who just looks like a giant mass of mushrooms. He has a great scene too, where he peels some other mannequin's head back. That looked pretty cool.
I think that was the bloater. For all those zombie nerds.
I thought that was from Left 4 Dead.
No, these. I
need to learn my zombies.
These have very specific names. The child one you saw, that was a clicker.
Oh, okay.
The reason they're called clickers is
they click?
They click their tongue because by that point of the possession of the mushrooms, their eyes are gone.
Oh, so they use sonar.
They use sonar.
So they're blind mushroom zombies.
So
still a blind mushroom zombie is still a zombie. So I still have to not hit some points because I've seen zombies out of Horror Nights many times. What I really liked in this maze were the Joel and Ellie characters were everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I love that when I see a maze, I want to see the characters from the property, and you get that in spades. I thought the voice, it's not really acting, is it? It's the lip syncing that the actors do was great. You see it in the facade. They have a whole scene before you walk in. Several times I feel so bad for the poor actress who has to pop out and say one line like, oh, well, this sucks, and then pop back, wait 2 seconds, do it again, and she does this, I assume, over and over. That can't be an easy job, but she nails it.
The Ellie character, yes.
And Joel has a few scenes like that, too, and it's just fun to see them, it's another obstacle. We have to start the generator. We have to get rid of these zombies. We have to get through the locked door.
Mm-hmm.
And the zombies who pop out react in time to the gunshot sound effects in the maze and the VFX of the flash, where they're attacking you. You hear the bang, you see the flash, and then it acts like it got shot and it backs up. I love that. That was so unique. I've never seen that at any other maze at Horror Nights, and it really contributed to that video game feel of the enemy popped out. I shot it. Now I'm going to the next obstacle.
Mm-hmm. Had I known more that it was supposed to be based off the game, I feel like it would have given it a much better score because I would have understood what it was based on. But when I went through this, I was thinking, this is going to be the TV show because that was what's fresh in my mind. What was fresh in my mind was the show, not the video game. So for me, when I went through it, I kind of wanted to see more of the pre-infestation moments when Joe's with his
running through the town.
Is running through the town with his daughter. If we had seen that dramatic moment where he loses his daughter to the shots of the police officer, I feel like that would have been a very dramatic ending or start to the maze because you know a little bit more of the backstory. But I felt like this maze was lacking overall.
I disagree actually. I think that would have cheapened it because what I loved was it was a video game level. And it wasn't the whole video game. It was just you're going to go through a level. You're going through this sewer environment. Which again, it's a classic video game environment. And that really stood out to me. To any other maze we've had, we don't get video game mazes often at Horror Nights. I think
that is true.
I think not when we've been, but I believe there was a Silent Hill and a Resident Evil. I don't know if those were based on the movies or the games, so I won't make definitive statements. But I would love to see more video game mazes. I thought it was very different. And
Luigi's Haunted Mansion.
Luigi's Mansion maze. Our phone's open, Nintendo. So overall, I gave this one a B-. I'm a little tired of the zombies, but the style of the maze was different and fun. Also, just quick, the environment itself, it's a sewer and like an industrial park. Not super interesting. Pretty generic stuff. But again, the video game aspect kind of lifted that for me.
Okay, I see. I think for this one, I'm not going to give it a grade because my rubric was based off the movie, so it wouldn't be fair.
I imagine if you're going into this expecting the movie,
yes,
you don't, or the TV show, you don't get it.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it if you're going.
And the actors and actresses, the cast, they look like
the TV show, the game.
And it's amazing how much they do look like these game characters, but they do not look like Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey.
No.
Who both have pretty distinct looks, and the actors did not look like them.
Yeah, these definitely look like the video game characters. after looking, I know what the video game characters look like, thankfully.
I'm aware of the video game. I just haven't played it.
Yeah. So that was I feel like it wouldn't be fair for me to give it a grade based on the rubric that I had in my head.
So that's it for mazes, but there were a few more experiences I think we are going to squeeze in here in the last 10 minutes.
Ooh.
So the big one this year that was new was this Purge Dangerous Waters show.
Oh,
which
yes.
I believe, now I haven't seen the Waterworld show. I've been to Universal Studios a few times.
You've never seen Waterworld?
I've heard it's very good. I really do not care about Waterworld.
How dare you?
It's an odd property to have your big show based around. I know they do it because it's expensive to replace, and it's iconic at this point. I just haven't been to it. I've heard that this Purge show is very similar to the Waterworld show. Is that true?
Yes and no. One of the things that I will say is that in Waterworld, the big moment is when the plane lands in the ocean and he wets everyone. I am glad they did not incorporate that into this show because we watched it at night.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but there's no sun.
Okay. I actually am going to disagree. I would have liked the plane because I like the stunts. I thought the action was good in this. I thought the story was a bit of a mess. I'm not a big Purge fan to begin with. And for this one, it's not clear. I know you're supposed to not root for the senator. Okay, he's the bad guy because he starts the purge. Mm-hmm. Then we're rooting for the people who are doing the purge and not for the security guards just trying to save his wife. Why is he not the hero? It was very confused. In
a way, you can say that no character was black and white. Everything's so gray.
In a 5-minute stunt show, I want a simple black and white story that
no,
I can
how dare
to.
you? How
I
dare
don't
you?
need a lot of nuance in my Halloween Horror Night stunt show.
You have to care for every character individually, except for the senator. That one was a very black and white character.
The senator you're supposed to not like. Even like his poor wife didn't really do anything. He was just the wife. And again, the security guards, I thought that was going to be over here. He was going to fight the purgers. And maybe the senator gets offed as well, but he survives with his wife. Instead, he dies a pretty awful death. The gore effects were good. The stunts were good. I enjoyed the time we spent watching it.
How did you feel about the twist?
It was fine. I was hoping for a better... I was hoping that the assistant would show up with the plane, and that would be the finale, that they escape on the plane. I think that would... Because there was really no epic finale, just kind of, one more little stunt and it's over.
Okay, that's
it needs something to tie it off at the end.
I will say I did love that if you watch again Waterworld, you'll understand a lot of it, where they go through the different pillars and they're attacking each person that's on a different pole, and when they all fall into the water, and it's very reminiscent of Waterworld. I like that. It was the fire. It was nice because it was cold at night. It was all very okay.
Yeah, it was very okay.
It was very okay.
I don't know. I would give it more than okay. I liked it. I'm not going to give it a grade. If they do it next year, I hope they do. It's an improvement on Jabberwockies. It fits the theme of the event.
Yes.
I actually went to this one. It wasn't just a random thing to draw people in. It was drawing a big crowd. When we went, it was full.
It was full.
So I think people enjoy having a Halloween show. Just please no more Purge. There's been so much Purge at Horror Nights. Let's put a different property in there.
So you're saying you want to purge the purge?
That would be great. I could use a purge.
Ooh, a purge party. No, that sounds...
Not a purge party. So that was that show. There was also the Horrors of Bloomhouse, guest starring Megan.
No.
You didn't like that one?
This
was one where if you waited in line, I would have been upset. We were able to use our pass to bypass the line.
Yes.
And it was fine. It was a very short video and a very short Megan dance. It was a fun Megan dance. It was the one from the movie.
I think
the dancers did a very good job. Of course, you're going to get great dancers in LA.
Of course. But I think the primary thing for this attraction was that you were able to take photos with a lot of the animatronics that are in the actual movie of, what is that?
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
I saw that online. I really don't care about... It's not my franchise. I'm a little too old for it when it came out, but I know there are people out there who love Five Nights at Freddy's. Much love to you. I'm sure you loved seeing that before the movie came out. I love the Invisible Man costume. I love seeing that on display.
You also get to take photos with the grabber from Black Phone, if you remember that movie.
Yes, I really like the Black Phone. And I believe they're making a sequel next year, so it may be making a reappearance at Horror Nights. I don't know how you'll make a sequel to that movie, but we'll see.
Yeah, because that movie felt like it was one and done.
There's never a horror movie that couldn't have a sequel. That's what Hollywood's taught us over the years. So you didn't like the show?
No. I felt like had I been waiting in line, because that line looked
it was
like
a long line.
It was over an hour, maybe over 2. Had I been waiting in that line, and all it was you get to take photos with the Five Nights at Freddy guys and the Grabber, and then you get to watch this Megan show that wasn't. The dancing was fine.
There wasn't enough Megan.
But there wasn't enough Megan. There wasn't enough anything else besides Megan.
I thought there would, first of all, be more. It was just a lot of clips from Blumhouse movies, and then a very short Megan dance.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be a more involved Megan dance and maybe a Megan murder.
It should have been. It should have been more Megan murders.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising me Megan didn't have her own maze. That was a big movie last year. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know.
But maybe next year for Megan 2.
Not enough Megan.
I believe those were the 2 shows. There were also, I mean, really, the point about scare zones is scare zones are kind of gone. There are some guys with chainsaws at the entrance. I think there was like a Dolls theme.
Yeah,
this year.
What I did see in the Latin America sections / Mexico.
When you walk out of the maze, they've been doing that lately.
Yeah.
When you walk out of whatever's in the Parisian courtyard, there's kind of a maze extension. That's usually pretty solid.
Yeah.
But I remember when we started going, just to get around the park, you would walk through scare zones.
A lot of zones.
Now, part of that's because they don't put you on the back lot for mazes anymore because those city sets are in use year-round now, and they've moved you to by the Curious George parking lot. You walk through the Harry Potter world. But it feels like they could still have a scare zone on that walk. I don't know why they don't do something
there's nothing
that.
in the bottom lot. There's nothing at all.
The Death Eaters were back this year in Hogsmeade. I felt it was a step down from last year. I don't know why. Maybe we were just on an off night, but it felt like they were not as active as they were last year.
It's just a very short Diagon Alley, and I would have enjoyed it.
Maybe we were there on like a Thursday last year, and we were there on a Saturday this year, so maybe it's just more crowded, so we didn't see them as much.
The one thing that, what was it? The main thing for the Mexican land section was Day of the Dead. And so there was a lot of like Day of the Dead characters that would walk around. So these were not really scaring people. I saw way more people taking photos of them. Yeah. With them.
They have that kind of Day of the Dead plaza where you can buy like burrito tacos and corn.
Yes. And it was a lot of just like, they weren't meant to. I mean, sure, they scared a couple people, but for the most part, I saw a lot of photo ops with them.
Yeah. We also had a photo op with David S. Pumpkins. That was pretty fun.
Oh, yes!
And I believe you can also get the Bride of Frankenstein if you wait by that slot for a while.
That is correct. There was also the bird creature from the Monsters of Latin America that was walking around on stilts.
I love a good stilt walker. I want to see more of it in the park. I want to get from place to place. I want to have to walk through scare zones, and that feels like an element that they've
really stepped down.
Maybe they're investing more in the mazes, which I can understand, but I feel like at least one at the start of the park, they need to punch a little more into there.
The one thing that, yes, also we went through we bought the pass to avoid most of the lines, but I also went on general line to experience that again. And one thing that was disappointing was when the park opens at 6:30 for Horror Nights, at least when I went, the actors weren't there. The scare zone was not active. You just walk through and there's nothing.
It's always been a little confusing about when you can get in with the pass versus when does Horror Nights really start and what mazes open when. And it felt like this year they really ramped up that confusion even more than usual. Yeah. Trying to when you can get into like Nintendo World and what passes can't. Yeah. So a little operations trouble this year. Hopefully that's cleared up for this year. Hopefully there's not such a rush to get into Nintendo World so that can just be open.
I did ask later on when I went with the general line people, Nintendo World, if you want to go to Horror Nights, is only open for RIP members.
All right. I believe it was if you bought the after 2 p.m. pass, you could get into Nintendo World this year.
Was it? No, because I think it was only RIP.
I don't know. Well, we'll have another podcast about operations where we won't litigate this right now because we are just about at the end of our time for this episode. I think we've covered it. So overall, before we have to go, Alvaro the Phantom, overall, how do you like last year?
This past year was pretty good. I want to say B.
I was surprised as I went through these mazes that they were all ranking as low as they were, because I remember really loving this year. I thought it was a great year. I think maybe it was a year where it was more than some of its parts, where we had a bunch of mazes. There were a lot this year to get through. Even if there were some weak ones in there, I thought there were also a lot of really strong ones. And even the ones that we kind of belabored, like Stranger Things, I still liked it. Yeah. I still liked Exorcist. I still liked Holidays. I still liked
They were pleasant.
Yeah, they were good mazes. The only one I thought that was a real stinker was Evil Dead. So overall, I would give this an A- here. I thought it was a good year.
Okay.
And that's going to do us for our first episode of the Hollywood Horror Nerds.
Thank you for tuning in.
Check this space. You can find us on the socials. We don't have those handles up yet, but we'll splice in an outro after we do in a few days. So until then, stay scared out there. And we'll see you next month.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this production of the Hollywood Horror Nerds. We know you have many options for your listening entertainment, and we're glad you chose us. Find us on Instagram at Hollywood_horror_nerds, on X at HW Horror Nerds, and on YouTube at Hollywood Horror Nerds. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast site to ensure you don't miss next month's episode. And until then, stay scared out there.